We are joined today with Ashley Howard. Ashley, can you please say and spell your first and last name?
Sure, I'm Ashley Howard. That's ASHLEYHOWARD.
Great. And can you please give us a little bit about your academic background and where you come from?
Sure. As many people know around here, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm very proud of that. I was born and raised there. And then I came to Chicago in '99 and attended DePaul University, where I received a degree in International Studies and Economics in 2003. And then I moved back to Nebraska a year later and received a master's degree from the University of Nebraska at Omaha in history in 2005. And then I moved back to Illinois to attend the University of Illinois, which is where I'm currently at, and I'm pursuing a PhD degree in history.
And why did you choose to intern here?
Well, there are many reasons. First of all, this was, I thought, a really exciting experience to be involved in the creation of a Black oral history archive, in that my research interests focus around Black history, African American history, and particularly I use oral history a lot in my own research to get a lot of information. I felt that it was the perfect mix. I was also very compelled by the organization's mission to broaden our understanding of history beyond, the movers and shakers, to people who have a unique perspective on history. And quite honestly, I was looking forward to living in Chicago and kind of being a part of this whole community for a summer also.
And what were some of your responsibilities this summer?
I pretty much had a smorgasbord of responsibilities. Technically, I was a research and writing fellow. So I spent some time doing research, evaluations, writing biographies. But I was fortunate enough to be trusted to have some bigger responsibilities. So I did lots of tours of our facilities. I wrote reports. I crunched numbers. I presented to the board. So I did a whole slew of different activities, many of which were new and sometimes a challenge for me.
And can you please share with us one of the most memorable experiences about your time here this summer?
I think two of my most memorable experiences here would be the first of which I was asked to pitch hit for a lecture at the Field Museum. And that was extraordinary because I had a podium and a big screen behind me, so I kind of felt like a fancy professional. But what I was so nervous about is that they didn't give me a lot of information of whom I was going to be speaking to. They said, you probably won't have any kids, but maybe some kids, and you probably won't have any professional historians, but maybe a few. So I had this idea of everybody, the possibilities. So I had a wonderful mixed group of people, some who had lived in Chicago all their lives, others, there were about 10 children between the ages of 10 and 12 who knew nothing about the Great Migration, which is what I was lecturing on. And so there was this wonderful banter of being able to ask kids questions and for them to intuit the answers, and then having kind of this old guard be able to expound on what I was saying, give their own personal experiences. So I really thought that was a wonderful collaboration of history, oral stories, and a learning opportunity. And then the second most memorable experience for me was when Leon Dash came to the HistoryMakers, because I researched him, wrote his biography, and it was, for me, it came really full circle because I sat on his entire almost 8-hour interview, which was very intense. And so it was so neat to see how the whole process went from the beginning, from the inception, all the way to the conclusion of an interview.
What have you learned about yourself from this summer?
What have I learned about myself? That's a great question. I think I've learned that I am a lot hardier than I anticipated. Like, I was able to work long days and to persevere and to go through. I always kind of saw myself as a rogue academic, perhaps that's a little much, but a lone academic, working with myself. And this really forced me to be a team player and to cooperate with others and to see how they were going. And I think most importantly, what I learned, not necessarily about myself, but it helped me to broaden my horizons and my understanding of the African American experience. Frequently, I kind of get mired in my own research and my own interest, within our history, and this really forced me to look at art makers, business makers, medical makers, people that I wouldn't often come into contact with through my own scholarship.
What do you think the value is of this project?
We probably don't have enough tape to talk about the entire value of this project. So I think just some highlights. First of all, I think the Infomedia Digital Video Library, or the CMU, is an immeasurable, I guess, application in that it allows people to search through a series of interviews for certain keywords. And this is, I think, so great because often scholars get kind of stuck in what they think or where they're going to find something. And this allows you to see about riots or about lynchings in places which you wouldn't necessarily see. That'd be the first thing. Second of all, I really like the interactive nature of this archive. So it's not, in a dusty, musty space that nobody can see. We're taking it out into the community. We have evening withs, we have PBS specials, we have a curriculum that was functional in 3 different school systems. And I think that's huge because history is only powerful if it's in the hands of the people. And so by providing this information to a larger masses, we're actually empowering them at the same time.
And in your definition, what is a history maker?
For me, I think a history maker are people who are the first and the best. And I think at the same time, it's people who can articulate a broader experience. So people who moved in the migration, people, who were sharecroppers, people whose stories can resonate with a large group of people and to tell a story of a collective identity.
And who would you like to see be a history maker?
There's lots of people I'd like to see become a history maker. First of which, I of course have to give a Nebraska shout out, and that would be to Senator Ernie Chambers, because he has been influential not only in the local scene, but also on the national level for over 40 years in politics. The next person I would love to see would be Bill Russell, the basketball player. He broke down tons of racial barriers, but still combated against racism and bigotry throughout his entire tenure with Boston's team. And the people I would most like to see become history makers are people whose names I don't know. These aren't people that would necessarily have a Wikipedia page or have already done a collection, but these are people's grandmothers, people's uncles, someone's tenant union leader, people who otherwise may not have their stories captured. They're not in the formal record, they're not in newspapers, they're not in magazines, they're just regular people. Those are the folks I'd like to see the most.
Great, that was so good.
We are here today with Tracy Jarrett, and the first question that I have for you is, could you please just state your name and spell it for us?
I'm Tracy Jarrett. That's TracyJarrett.
And could you firstly just tell us a little bit about your academic background and where you come from?
I'm from Chicago, and I was born and raised here. I went to Walter Payton College Prep, and I'm a rising sophomore at Amherst College in Amherst, Massachusetts.
Okay. And why did you choose to intern here at the HistoryMakers?
Well, I've always heard about the project because my grandfather was one of the earlier interviews, and I was just very, very interested in the collection. And at school, I'm thinking about majoring in English with a focus in African American literature. So I have an interest in African American history, and I just wanted to learn more, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to write and learn.
And what were your responsibilities here?
I was a research and writing intern, so for all the potential history makers, I researched them, wrote bios, made outlines, and then I also had a few special projects, one of which was an evening with Eartha Kitt, and I wrote the script for that, and I've been in charge of gathering stock footage and kind of putting that together for our big program.
Okay. And can you tell us something about your most memorable experience or experiences here?
My most memorable experience was my second week working here. I was asked to go on an interview, and Juliana was interviewing Loyanne Anasty King, which was one of our AKA interviews, and it was my first time really experiencing the collection firsthand, just being in the room while she was being interviewed. It was just amazing, just her story and the process, it just fascinated me.
So, what have you learned about yourself from this experience?
I've learned to be confident in my skills because working here this summer, I've been asked to do a lot of things that I didn't necessarily know I was going to be asked to do. And so I had a lot of challenges, things I've never done before, and I've learned that I can do them and I can do them well and to be confident in my abilities. So I think that